So there's a lot of different approaches to going through the initiation hermetics text. The mainstream approach that you'll get exposed to online is to read the book and systematically go through each exercise one at a time the way Franz Barton recommends it. So you'll complete one, okay, now you're ready to move to the next, complete the next, and so forth. And then you have the approach of laying out all the exercises, mapping them, and then looking at which ones you're able to do more easily and which ones are more difficult. So a person who, let's say they're a Buddhist monk, they pick up the initiation book and read through it. They've been practicing their precepts, they've already got a saintly life, they're already following their practices at an extremely high level. They're going to be jumping up to the latter exercises, connecting to light, connecting to Akasha, connecting to divine providence through prayer straight away. That's already second nature to them. So then it's just a matter of picking up the exercises through resonance, which are easy, and then filling the gaps. So I haven't done that type of thing before, and then they'll slowly go to the more difficult exercises. So you pick the low-hanging fruit first, and then you go for the more difficult exercise afterwards. And what this does is it creates a habit and a self-image of this is easy, I'm able to do this, I'm able to succeed, and I'm able to achieve the bigger picture. And the mind's ability to look at something and say, I can do this, is one of the most important factors for success. If a person goes through in a linear fashion, step one, and then they spend a few months on it, step two, and it starts getting more difficult, there's this thing inside them that says they can't do it because the amount of times they fail. So they're not achieving the result the book expects, and their unconscious self-image has resistance, and then there's a high chance that person's going to give up. Where if they go through the exercises like vital breathing, which are easy, and elements and so forth, then they go back to the more difficult exercises. They've already got a self-image of a successful person in hermetics. And that self-image empowers them to tackle the more difficult exercises and get success. So the amount of time it takes to get through the whole book gets pulled into a much shorter amount of time. There is an astral phenomena where the next exercise makes the last exercise easier. So, for instance, if you do vital breathing and then you enliven the mental body of life force, then you practice the step one mental exercises. They're really simple. But if you did the step one exercises, the mental training first, some people find it easy and some people find it really difficult to watch their thoughts rise and fall away. Because life force animates the mind, it's the fuel of the mind, and if you're energizing the mind before you practice, it's more stable, more focused, and it gets the results more quickly. And this phenomenon happens right through the book, where the next exercise makes the last one easier. And if you're looping between the two, you'll get faster results. So you might go, all right, I'm going to work on step 1 and 2 at the same time. Then I'm going to work on 3 and 4 at the same time. Or even 3 steps simultaneously. And you loop and cycle through each of the exercises. They support the stream in such a way that the energy flows. So when we look at step 1 to 10, and you look at it as a river, energy going down the river, and your astral body literally is doing this. It has a continuity of flow over time, even though your physical body is living in this present moment, your astral body isn't. So if you, let's say, do one exercise only, you're building a dam wall in your unconscious. If you're doing, let's say, 10 exercises, one after the other, and a loop, that stream happens, and one exercise is unconsciously influencing the next, and the next, and the next, which makes the first one easier. You pour water down a tube, there's vacuum at the top of the tube, pressure on the bottom, and everything's moving, all those 10 exercises are supporting each other at once. So this causation chain, this reaction in the astral unconscious that takes place, we want to plan that out. So when you map out your initiation process, in the center of the map, normally you'll have a sun symbol, a symbol for divinity, a symbol for entering the Tao, the Nibbana, a Buddha image, whatever your religious belief is, what your goal, what represents your goal. You put that in the middle of the map, that's where you're going. but that's not the case for everybody. Some people are going to want to get better at a particular activity. So one person might go, I want to be the world's best salesman. And they go through the initiation text with that perspective. So the observing the rising falling away of thought, they start with that, and then they automatically go to observing the rising falling away of how they speak when they're in a sales environment, how they feel, paying attention to the mindfulness of the response to words when you're talking to someone, and they're observing the rising and falling away becomes a practical exercise every day in their work. And they start picking up more information and become a better salesperson. And because their goal is set to be a great salesman, every exercise takes on the flavor of salesmanship, and it changes the frequency to reflect the goal. And astrally, the whole initiation process, every exercise, is mirroring the blueprint, akashically, of what that person's goal is. So every exercise changes flavor. It becomes a different thing. If a person wants to become the magician, every exercise reflects magical work. And it's very, very, very different. So having your whole initiation process mapped very, very cleanly puts you in a place of, I'll practice this exercise in this way because it reflects the goal. And it becomes unique to you. So when we train initiation, where you want to go is very, very important. And initially, you think you want to go somewhere, but then after you've been practicing for a few months, that destination starts shifting and changing, and you get higher priorities and changes and shifts in your lifestyle, which allow you to take things more seriously, and so forth. So our remapping of the initiation process on a regular basis is very, very important, because when you remap it, you map it differently. You see each exercise differently. The name of the exercise changes. From observing the rising, falling away of thoughts to calling it discipline of thought, to calling it mindfulness. And then as soon as you change that word of that spectrum of that exercise, it can take on a whole Buddhistic philosophy or a Taoist philosophy as an undertone to the word. So relabeling things in a way that fits your goal, super, super beneficial. Once you've gone through that process, and every month you're relabeling and reframing your initiation process, and you've got your causation streams working in streams, then you're at a place where you start ticking the boxes. Okay, I've ticked that one, that one's done. You can drop it off the map for now. That one's done. You go through the few dozen exercises that are there and tick them all off. Now, some of the exercises you may go, well, I don't really need that one, and you drop them out of your map. Or you will adjust how you do it. So there's an exercise where you make a wax doll and you charge it up, and that's a reflection of your unconscious, your energy system, and you start affecting your own unconscious through the doll. Well, you may want to just have a simple amulet that has a hole drilled in it. You put a drop of blood in it, and that connects to your own spirit and energy field, and you charge that up instead of having to have a doll. So you adjust and change the exercises to suit a more modern use and what suits your personality to get access to your own unconscious. Then there's things like Franz Barden's self-hypnosis exercises, where you have a string of beads and you go through counting and subconscious affirmations, and you go through that loop and you imprint your own unconscious. As soon as you start astral breathing, you realize, oh, there's faster and better ways of doing it. Then there's light and sound machines to allow you to do it. So what I did with the light and sound machine is I did a recording of a self-image of, I'm master of mindfulness, I'm master of concentration, I'm master of unity with emptiness, I'm master of applying these principles to day-to-day life, I'm a master of black and white mirror. And I just went through it and did those statements for every exercise in the whole book, and recorded them, and then looped them into the light and sound machine. So put it to 7.8, and I could never reach the end. I'm listening to them, affirming them, and I just fall asleep. And that'd be my way of falling asleep at night. And you just don't get to the end of it. You're out, knocks you out. Found that to be far more efficient than using the string of beads and then trying to remember all your affirmations, and say, well, you just do one really, or two, with maybe three, and loop through them, versus the whole, affirming the whole path of the book. And then you would be looking at, oh, that's working, these ones aren't. And then you do surrounding affirmations. Oh, I've got to improve my concentration. And then you make affirmations related to concentration, and then you practice and act them out. Now, the key to success with any form of affirmation, any form of behavioral conditioning of oneself, and using those short statements, is action. That you do that at night, you fall asleep, you have to act on it the next day. So you would look at your map of the initiation process, and you have a sense of, yeah, I wrote down all those. I like to frame it as 72 particular exercises for initiation, and then go through them. And then when you start including the skills towards the end of the book, I blew it out to 108 skills, and engraved a sigil for each one onto a string of beads. You charge up the string of beads, you touch the bead, you say the affirmation, and you can go through it that way. And then when you charge it up, it reflects through the unconscious alpha tuning forks, and everything takes on a sense of ease when you practice. Once you've got everything framed out, you've got your goals, and you're doing your monthly adjustment of your goals, and you've been ticking the boxes on the exercises that you've done, you'll get to this point where you've got half of the book ticked off, or you've got most of the exercises at a place where I can do these, they're comfortable, they're easy. Then the other half, you notice that there's, I can do it, but not at the requirement of the book. It has such a high level of expectation that there's this feeling of, will I ever be able to achieve what the book is asking of me? And so rather than have any sense of failure within the process of practicing, I take that frequency and then I align it to my path of service, and then express it through that path of service so that it fulfills itself within the needs I have. And then I leave the top end of the higher magical manifestations of all these skills, just a potentiality that can just happen when it aligns and when things are right for it. And what that does is it kind of allows me to tick all the boxes off at a very, very entry level of, yep, that's in my path of service, I can do that much of it, but in the future all these other things are open, I'm open, receptive, and taking place. And this allows your mind to manage that this is possible, this is not possible, on a vibrational scale moving forward. Now, the things that are easy to achieve create momentum, and the things that are more difficult to achieve, to maintain that momentum, there always seems to be something you have to give up to get something else. And if you look at a vibrational scale of attachment, in your physical attachments, your emotional attachments, and your mental attachments, say they're all within this spectrum. And we have the non-dual light, and then we have the high light bodies and highest dharmas and materialization of magical skills. If I want to move this up into light, I have to give up something on the bottom. And if I want to move it further, I have to give up more in my astral. And if I move it further, I have to give up more in my mental. So for this to become purely magical and non-dual, the lifestyle of asceticism has to be there. The monastic thinking has to be there. You have to give up all these physical attachments for the mind to engage the non-dual realms and higher akashic skills. So it's kind of like, I've gotten to that point, I'm not moving anymore. What do I have to drop here for this to go up? And as that drops, it moves up. And you get a sense of, as above, so below. What are the things holding on the bottom that you have to let go of for the top to move? And it becomes self-evident in your mirror. Your black and white mirror initially is kind of simplistic. You have your emotions there, and you have your triggers to these emotions, and you have your basic psychology, and you get a sense of your personality. And as you start working with Akasha and you look at karma streams, you either have to let go of something or cut off the karma if there's too much of it there. Because we can't manage all our karma from past lives, it's just too much. but we can isolate it, release it, so the mind can float up like a balloon by cutting the string. And the problem with that is they'll have these experiences, and then the karma and the past lives go, yeah, it's still here, and you'll end up doing this, but at least you have the experience on the higher end, which gives you a type of driving force to want to practice and follow truth and develop yourself. So dealing with those psychological issues as you go through the higher levels of practice need to be done. Otherwise, your accumulation of faith in your development process starts to get hindered. And what I'd like to do is to pay attention to the things that I was good at, the skills that I had extreme faith in, build them up so that that faith would radiate to the other things I hadn't achieved yet, and they'd start to interconnect and flow. All right, the next aspect of your initiation process is developing the art, and it is an art, of causation chains. So earlier we talked about, taking 10 exercises in the first few steps and doing one at a time, and you'll notice the astral stream moves, and they all support each other, and they create this causation chain. And you have that as you go through the book. I like to recommend to people to list every exercise in the whole book and do the stream beginning to end. Not all the time, but at least once a month. And you'll see where in that stream it starts to break. And with a beginner, they'll get to a kasha and say, I kind of got this, but I haven't got that. If you're working with light, and it'll go from astral light to non-dual light. It'll flux between duality and infinity. And you'll see where your breaking points are as you go through it. But even as you're doing from the 6 to 10 exercises, when a person's still a relative beginner, they'll have success with some of those exercises. They'll go, oh, I can do that one, or those are difficult, and so forth, depending on their background. And going through all of them and just surrendering to the frequency of exercise and giving yourself to the exercise and allowing it to flow through you will allow you to see the causation chain and get a sense of where you need to work, where things are easy, and where they fit into your path of service. When something fits into your path of service, there's a sense of ease. Like you were talking about, you were teaching a class and everything clicked and you were locked in. It was, oh wow, everyone had a good experience and it just happened. Everything just clicked. So that path of service, you would link it into each exercise and go, well, if I practice observing the rising, falling of thoughts in resonance and in service to my future students, then that causation chain over time, the power and merit and the benefit of every student you're going to teach in this incarnation comes into resonance in that exercise, and you go, I got it. The exercise is easy, because that merit is supporting that. So when you incorporate a vow of service into every exercise, there's certain exercises that are going to shine and just be, this is really important in that path of service, and you already own them, because the astral body is not subject to time. You totally own them in 10 years, so you sense that ownership now, and there's a sense of ease which happens, and it goes, I've got this, I own this. And that connectivity in the causation chain gives you a fast track to success. Because there's a certain non-self in the vow where you're not building up this identity of power, you're actually getting the identity out for a greater good. And as soon as you get that out of the way, the energy moves through the astral body as a raging river rather than a trickle, and you get the results you're after. So if it's healing, you study healing for the benefit of your patients. If you're teaching, you practice for the benefit of your students. If you're a writer, you practice for the benefit of your readers, and so forth. Whatever your situation is, you work out your vows with a non-self undertone, so that the astral body can work. Now these causation chains, when we look at something very, very, very simple causation chain that'll teach to a beginner, is relax and hang the muscles, open the joints, breathe relaxation to the ball between your hands. And it's a series of things that have to happen in the body for the person to experience life force. So it's a causation chain, and you can put your mind at, okay, hang the muscles. It's an exercise of hanging the muscles. Gently stretch the joints open. Relax the breath through onto the ball. So each one is a facet of the skill, but relaxing and hanging the muscles just becomes unconscious once you've done it. Stretching the joints open gently becomes unconscious when you want to stimulate energy. The conductivity and flow of the energy becomes unconscious. Oh, just stream and extend, and you get the energy moving. So you define each aspect of success, and then you train the skills, but in the end it's all being done at once. But the person that you see it like this, you go, oh, relax and hang the muscles, soften the shoulders, and you might use some metaphors of the meat is just hanging on the hanger. You know, you just hang the muscles down, and use classical metaphors according to your past to help people get that. Now, every exercise, whether it's something very simple or something very complex, has a causation chain. So watching your thoughts rise and fall away. You have to have an asana in which you do that, a comfortable posture. So for a beginner, they might want to lay in the hammock when they do that. Because when you're in a hammock watching your thoughts rise and fall away, the body kind of disappears more easily if they're sitting in a chair. If they're in a comfy couch, it'll disappear more easily than if they're like this. So they don't have to use their final asana, they just have to put themselves in a position which your mind gets freed up to practice. And so a person who's got some health problems, if they have postural problems or overweight, you let them find their most comfortable place to sit. You don't tell them, okay, straighten the spine, do this, do that, and then they're really uncomfortable and they can't concentrate. Most of us, that's fine, but everyone, they can't do that. So you just accommodate people's relaxation for them to get success in whatever the exercise is. Now, the reason why you want to feel the sit bones, feel your feet, feel your crown, stretch everything out, hang the muscles, is that the spine regulates success in a whole range of exercises. If the spine is compressed, the energy is not going to radiate and flow. You need to stretch the fascia around the spine, around the joints, from the hand to foot to crown, so those 5 extremities have the correct frequency of stretch for energy to radiate. Now, vital energy has a different stretch to astral, to a different stretch to mental, to a different stretch to akashic energies, and a different stretch to the non-dual light energies. The ideal radiance is a different synchronicity between the 3 bodies. But most of these exercises, the fascia has to be aligned to it in some way. The only exceptions are akashic trance, where there's a limpness through the fascial web. But as soon as you go through akasha into light, to radiate light, there's similar stretches and tautness to what you'll have in vital and astral. So depending on the frequency you're emanating is what stretch, what conductor you're turning your body into to conduct that energy through the body. So as you go through these exercises, look at your body and what works best for you to get success, and the students you're working with, what's going to bring them success. And don't be rigid in your approach. Everyone doesn't have to do this. If you see someone in the class that would do better just laying on the floor with a pillow under their neck, just lay down if you want, that's fine. Give them the complete freedom. If you don't give people freedom, their mental space contracts and they fail. So the first thing to look at is their mental space opening cleanly? Is their astral body in a state of comfort and a place of non-judgment, that no one's judging them, that they can be free to practice without any sense of worrying about the environment, worrying about the people, worrying about anything, that they're clear to go ahead and move forward. Okay, so you've been going through the initiation process, you've got it mapped out, you've gone through these stages, and you start hitting the hurdles where, this is getting more difficult. So we have principles around troubleshooting, how to keep moving forward with momentum. And what normally stops a person moving forward is subconscious belief structures about where they've reached, what they unconsciously believe is possible and what is not possible. The contraction of the mental matrices. Now, you don't need a lot of space to feel vital energy. Your mental matrices just need to open a little, your mental body just has to be open a little, and you have to be able to concentrate the breath to feel vital energy. So a person will get that with a very, very average state of consciousness and a very average state of body tension. Doesn't take too much to relax, hang the muscles, open the joints, and direct the breath into the ball. They get it quickly. As soon as you start getting the second half of the book, the matrices have to be far more open. The mental space has to be far greater. The release of time has to be far deeper. And one's relationship and surrender to infinity has to have a certain depth. And then things just happen, because the preconditions for that happening are set. And when we're moving from the vital to the astral through the first 5 exercises, and 4 exercises more so, it's easy. You don't need much in the range of releasing time and space and thinning the matrices. You just need a little bit, and people will feel the elements. So they'll get to the Akasha exercise and they'll go, oh, what's going on? I can't get this, especially if they're working alone at home and not in a group. And then we've got to look at, okay, what do you believe unconsciously? Is that stopping you? What environment are you in, as part of that? And then go straight to the matrix and go, okay, what's my relationship to time, space, thin them out, get open, and then things are in a space in which you can actually get success. Because if the matrices are clinging, consciousness will identify with physiology, with what your physical eyes see, with what your physical senses receive. They won't be identifying with the spirit senses. And this actually starts to happen where you vital breathe and you get comfortable with that vital energy, and then you build a grounding in it, but you also are building a cage that you can't go past it. Because you ground yourself in this feeling, you're also grounding your matrices to resonate with that feeling, and you're building a container in which you're good at Qigong, but to go past it, you have to break the container. You have to break the habits that you formed to get to there. So when you realize it's a process of establishing habits and breaking them, you build the habit in such a way that you've already surrendered it in the process of building it. So you build a vital energy breathing skill. Underneath you go, oh, this is amazing, but I know there's so much more, and I'm going to enjoy giving this up to take on the next step. And that unconscious expectation to move from one step to the next will allow the matrices not to form a habit of building a powerful container for vital power. It'll create the habit of, we're moving forward and this is what we have to do. So your unconscious relationship to your growth needs to be considered from day one. And that's why we map out the whole book rather than do one step at a time. Because if you do one step, you just build a container for one step rather than an astral flow through all the steps. And that revisiting those principles will, whenever you have any plateauing or I can't go any further, that's most probably going to be why. You build a powerful Qigong cage, now you're stuck in it. So you've got to defabricate, break everything down and to move to the next level. And if you have an unconscious expectation you're doing that a lot, you just move forward. There's no plateauing, you just keep going. And I like use a Fibonacci rhythm of moving forward, where you go up and then you'll have a 50% pullback or about a 1/3 pullback. If you go to a 2/3 pullback, that rhythm slows down for too much. So I like a 50% pullback. And if you work out a precise Fibonacci frequency mathematically, it might work really, really well. But just putting a picture of a Fibonacci spiral on the wall sets your unconscious so that when you have a break, you just, yep, I'm going through the pullback so I can accelerate forward again. And then it sets up a type of, when you get back into it, it's easier than when you left it. And what I mean by that is, You can't go to the gym and lift weights, every day all year. You've got to give your body a break. So when you're putting stress, you need time for the stress adaptation, you need time for the healing before you put more stress. So these cycles, we have small daily cycles, hourly cycles, weekly cycles, monthly cycles, seasonal and yearly, where you give yourself a break not to be focused on developing yourself, where you just allow yourself to be in a natural flowing rhythm. And when you find your natural flowing rhythm, that's the time I like to do more contemplation, more insight practice into understanding ideas, cracking difficult problems that, how do I do that? And just get all my stuff out of the way. I can see it now. Because that doesn't take willful effort. It actually just requires you to let go and get in the flow and relax and allow space to be there. Okay, so you find an efficient way to cycle your effort. Now, if you put in too much effort too fast and you have high peaks where you get pulled into a space which is just too open and it's too good and it's too high and it's too feel like you're touching divinity, the law of rhythm is going to take you back to earth really hard and fast. And if you know that's coming, that it's like that was really, really intense, and the law of rhythm, that can't be sustained, because to own those high states of consciousness require a huge amount of surrender to the bottom. So you're in a situation, alignment experience. This happens to a lot of people in Thailand on holy days. They go to the temple and pray. In the wet season, they hang out with the monks. They have these peak experiences. Then they go back to their physical life and all this other stuff, and this pulls them down really, really hard. And when you're there, this becomes, I've got to let go of that to own this. So the usual rhythm is moving like this, and now they're bang, because of the amount of surrender in that particular day and synchronicity to holy day. And then they hit that and they end up down there because of the law of rhythm, where this was the center of gravity. So you know what is holding you back, you know what your attachments are, you know where the static's coming from, you get a sense of it pretty quickly. And when you're in that higher states, what is in opposition to those higher states becomes more revealing. So you want to journal that and put it on the to be dealt with list. And what I found works better is not to deal with it right now, because that creates an opposition to the experience I just had. It goes, these two are now going to fight, and I don't want that. What I want to do is go onto the unconscious and negotiate with it, say, hey, let's start releasing, and use a contemplative method of release, not a willful method of release. If you apply will on two ends of the spectrum, you're going to have chaos. But if you go insight there, and you're experiencing there, and you understand and you build a psychological way of moving lower energies through emotions, from action to emotion to ideas into the stillness, then this just sort of softens itself. So you take a very slow, gentle, insightful approach to releasing when you're, let's say if you're doing a retreat. So, okay, I'm going to take this month off to practice, and you start seeing all these things that need to be dealt with. Don't deal with them. Not now. They're to be dealt with later. Now you simply understand and just give them a bit of space for the energy to raise. If you start dealing with them, you create chaos. If you deal with them in a very willful way. So this month we want to be pulling all these frequencies up into a non-dual light space, so that you can see yourself, so you can see your stuff, you can see your path, you can see where you're going, and whatever's there is okay. Just leave it alone. It's fine. The more you understand it, the easier it'll be. But avoid any fighting with it. The next aspect of looking at these plateaus and peak experiences and utilizing the law of rhythm is psychology of ownership. How do you own the skill in the experience that you have? Your first ownership is when you're there, you have to get the lower self to accept that you're there. So what I mean by this, let's say you're working with Akash and you relax into light and you feel that infinite light field and your mind just feels a part of it. In that moment there's whoa, and then you start coming towards the end of the exercise and you're coming back to the body and you'll sense things that are pulling you down. You know, if you're a smoker, you'll feel the desire for a cigarette. If you drink coffee, oh, I feel like a coffee. And they'll be like in the distance, but they're there. They're these little anchors that are there. And then you go, if I want to stay in this place longer, then I have to demagnetize that anchor. Because without me realizing it, from that light state, why didn't I stay there? It was something here which chose to pull me back down. And while you're there, you can't sense it. It's only when you start letting yourself come back down, you see the causation, the chain of why you're coming back down. You know, for instance, for myself, it'll be my body, you know, my neck. It'll go, oh, you know, if you stay there much longer, you're going to regret it later. You better give your body a break. And then, and I start pulling it back down again. So there's always something. Everyone's got something. If there wasn't anything that would stay in that light state for hours, all day, or days, if there's nothing astrally or physically to pull them, and you identify those things. So now you've got the space that you're going up to, you've got the unconscious resistors that want to pull you out of it, and then when you're in those higher states, you own it by reflecting back to your mind, back to your astral self, back to your physical self. This is where we want to be. And you have to use the we psychology, because you have all these different personality profiles within you. You have all these lower aspects of your physical and astral body that are individualizing themselves as a personality. It's a personality that does something, but only sometimes. And that's an individual part of your personality. That's an identity within you. So when you take on the we, the whole group of your unconscious, you want to contract every part of you to recognize this is good for all of us. So there's no conflict or controversy between higher and lower. You're not ignoring the lower. You're not going, I don't want you, I'm going to destroy you, I'm going to get rid of that part of the personality. You go, we're all going to raise in frequency into this state. And that recognition that every part of you wants to achieve that takes away the resistance and gives you ownership to every part of you is a part of ascension. And that non-resistant state, it allows you to move forward with a sense of ease and comfort on an unconscious level. Because when a person's working with something that is quite far outside of their understanding, there's always going to be parts of them which are going to be fighting it. And if you can contract all those parts, and everything just ascends gently in a very nice way. Okay, and then journaling. When you write something down in your journal, today I had this experience. I saw this color around a person in the training room, and it had this energy, and this is how I perceived it. Now, when you write this is how I perceived it is important, because it gives you flexibility and perception to evolve. If you say, I saw a red aura today, and this is what it was, and you stated as a fact, it stops you from investigating it more and unpacking more detail, because you've already solved it. If you solved it, you don't need to look into it more. So how you word your journal has to be investigative and open, and always learning and exploring and unpacking more stuff all the time. And you have to psychologically verbalize things in a way to get to the heart of the matter. And in doing so, you're opening up your unconscious to be someone who's investigating, testing, exploring, trying new things, and working things out all the time. And when you start off writing your journal in wording things in such a way, it becomes your personality profile. And that personality profile is needed for success. If you're not practicing and testing new things out all the time, how can you succeed? And you've got to have a fun, investigative way of doing that and figuring things out. So wording in your journal will range from, I use a slang. I have a trash journal where I go, oh, this is just my trash. This is stuff that's like, ah. And then I've got my ownership journal. These are the things I'm owning and moving forward with, and there's ones that really enter into prayer with. And then I've got my principle journal, and the principle journal is like a teaching manual. I teach myself and I teach others because it's full of principles of hacks, how things move forward more easily, why they work, causation chains. And that one's like a universal journal. This is a personal journal, and this is the one of, I had a notepad for years where I kept in my top pocket. So every shirt I had, top pocket, and had a pen. And every time I had a trash experience where I'd lose my temper, or I'd get annoyed by a dog barking, whatever it is, I'd write it down. And that was my trash journal. These are things I've got to go home, do a release on it, energize. I don't want that in my experience anymore, and do short daily releases. And it was a notepad, and as I released it, I would throw them in my akasha pit and burn them. So I charged a big pot with akasha and had a fire in it, and burn my old journals and go, okay, goodbye. I've said goodbye to that emotion, goodbye to that behavior, and just burn them away in the akasha and give them a going away ceremony. And there are more types of journals. You'll have your journal with every tree that you've done Qigong with. You take a leaf from the tree and you put it in the journal. And you might have 100 trees in there with 100 leaves, and then you put your hands over it and you vital breathe, and all these trees say hello to you at once, and the universal mind, living mind energy goes poof, when you're out. It's like, this is so good. And you've got nature magic coming from it. So it's a doorway to power, because your cells in your body, your spirit remembers every one of those trees in that relationship, and you can empower hundreds of relationships all at once because they're all in resonance with that living mind of nature.